Hey folks, this is Samuel Huber from SamuelHuber.net, Samuel Huber on YouTube, Samuel Huber on Facebook, Huber Family Adventures on Instagram. I'm here with several of my past guests, Andy, Victoria, Nikki, and Emily, and we're here to talk about autism and how society perceives people on the spectrum. And we're going to dive a little deep on how we can, bring each other into each other's worlds and communicate better. So the first thing I would like to do before we get into all of that, guys, can you go around a quick bio on yourselves for those who have not seen your previous videos? Victoria.
Okay, hi. So I'm Victoria. I run Actually Aspling on Instagram, Facebook, and I have a blog. And basically, I started blogging in 2018 after I was like late diagnosed as autistic. And yeah, that's pretty much what I do. So yeah.
Awesome. Andy.
Hi guys, my name is Andy. I run the YouTube channel Indie Andy. I also have other social media as well as Instagram and other things. Basically, I just talk about what's like being autistic from an autistic person's perspective. I was diagnosed when I was 4 or 5 years old, so I'm 28 now. So basically, just talking about my experiences as an autistic person, really.
Awesome. Nikki, can you tell us about yourself?
Okay, so my name is Nikki. I'm a Romani Gypsy, autistic, and I've ended up being an activist in both autistics and being Romani Gypsy, and I have just social medias with Autistic Life in Motion on Instagram. That's mainly where I am based. I do have a Facebook page. And I am on Twitter, but mainly on Instagram, and I kind of just share the intersectionality between being Romani Gypsy and being autistic.
Awesome. So I guess let's start with the first question. How do you guys believe that society perceives autism today and those who have it?
I think society is still behind quite a bit. Like there's more and more awareness at the moment, but what we really need is like acceptance and appreciation, and I think that's missing still.
I think society still views autism as a white male condition, and they don't really understand the diversity with autism, and that it can affect, well, not affect, but anybody can be autistic no matter what race or ethnicity or gender they are. It affects everybody equally. Well, I say affect, I don't mean like I don't always know what the right word to say is, but I meant like anybody can be autistic.
I think that's a huge point, that there's a lot more of us inside than we realize. That it's time to really catch up the world with who we are and see us as, as we've talked about in our videos, human beings rather than the disability. And that the male the female ratio, the ratio needs to be changed, definitely. Just by doing this show, I realized that there are so many women on the spectrum. Like within a month, I found all of you guys, and it's just like this needs to be talked about. All right, Emily, we did a quick intro, and then we're gonna answer the first question I sent you guys. So can you tell the folks a bit about yourself and then give your answer for the first question?
What was the first question?
The first question was, how do you believe society today perceives autism and those who have it?
I think the problem is most people kind of see it as the way it's like stereotyped. They don't realize that it's like a whole spectrum and it can affect anybody differently. I mean, people seem to think we're either like super geniuses or like completely helpless, when really it's like it can vary from person to person. I think with me, I can be, for example, I'm really good at art, but then there's other things that I need help with.
Mm-hmm. Can you give us a quick bio, Emily? Because everyone else told a little bit about themselves, just so if someone did not see your previous video with me.
I'm 24 years old. I'm an artist. I draw a lot of like crazy, like creepy yet whimsical stuff. I was only 6 years old when I was diagnosed, and I think my Asperger's does have a lot to do with my artistic ability.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you made a very valid point about how we're kind of like just kind of shoved, either we're Sheldons or we're like Rain Man
Yeah,
for a lot of people. So
yeah.
I totally feel that. Like, and it's to the point where I hate the Rain Man movie because like this person gets asked all the time, "Are you like Rain Man?"
I've never seen it, but I don't think I want to see it.
I've
Yeah.
seen it. It is what it is, I guess. You know, it's a piece of history, I guess. So,
Yeah, for me, it's like I'm just terrible at math, so I could never count cards.
Yeah,
All right.
I felt like the issue was more the fact that he was institutionalized than he was fantastic at maths. That was just my perception of the movie. I was like, the poor guy is like put in like this sort of care home, you know, like and forgotten, and nobody cares about him. I was more concerned about that than like having this perception that autistic people are really fantastic at maths. And I suppose that's another thing where I kind of missed the point the neurotypicals were getting at, I suppose.
Right.
You know, another example where like I missed the point of the movie.
and then also you have people who watch something like Rain Man, for example, and then their whole notion of what autism is and what autistic people are and who they are is kind of based on that, which is, I don't know, it's when you're trying to educate people or give someone your experiences, it's kind of difficult to I don't know, knock out the preconceptions they already have.
Yeah, like and that's the thing. I always say I barely pass math, like just barely. So like that's just not me. And I mean, and at least in America, there's been attempts to introduce more autistic characters, like Julie on Sesame Street, the Good Doctor, Sheldon. Even though he's never officially declared autistic, he very much is one of us. And so I think the perception, at least in America, is changing. Does in I guess England, do you have like kid characters that are autistic yet, or?
There's a girl in Hollyoaks, which is a British soap, and she's autistic.
I think ours is quite negative. So again, another soap was EastEnders, and it was very that like Marge parent, like, oh, how terrible it was. We got this autistic kid, and we don't understand him, and how awful it is. And we have this really problematic program called the A Word, and that again is an autistic child, and it's like how his autism destroyed their marriage and destroys his sister's life. It's very problematic here, the media in regards to autism. It's very much like the poor parent who has been saddled with this terrible autistic child. Here we don't really have a lot of positive representation in the media.
Well, by being on this show, we're creating positive media right here.
Yes.
So let's head to the next question. Question 3. Despite these prejudgments about who you are, how do you find ways to show people who you really are?
I think I mostly just use kind of my artwork as my voice, kind of. I mean, I've never been good at socializing or talking. I think drawing I kind of is my way of letting my feelings out. I think it just kind of shows. I think I see myself in my artwork a lot, and I think oftentimes showing what you do can kind of speak volumes.
I think, yeah, that's an excellent point. That because a lot of autistic people do show their love and appreciation for who they are through their actions, through their work, rather than our words. What about you guys?
I think with me, I kind of am just myself. I mean, I've never been able to develop a successful mask. So I just had to kind of accept that I'm just not going to work that way. And this is me, and I had to get to a point where I was like, you know, people are gonna have to, you know, lump it or like it, you know. And that's kind of how I've kind of been. It's just like I can't change. I've tried to change myself, tried to develop a mask. I'm just not good at it. So it's kind of like, if you like me, you like me. If you don't, you don't, you know. I've always seen myself as a bit like Marmite, which is like in the UK, there's like something that people either love or they hate, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of just like, well, I'm just gonna be me, and that's it.
Mm.
Yeah, I definitely share that sentiment, Nikki, to be honest. Yeah, it's just one of those things, especially as you get older as well, you kind of, I don't know, just from like what I've experienced, you just don't really care as much, I guess. You know, you kind of just,
Exactly.
yeah. I mean, growing up, you know, you kind of care about, you know, what people think of you and vice versa. But I don't know. For me, it's just not something I really think about. If people don't like me, they don't like me. If they like me, that's great. You know. I try not to think too much about it, because if you think too much about it, then you, I don't know, you take it up all the headspace, which could be put into more practical things.
Mm. I really like that attitude, Andy. Like, yeah, because at this point, like, you all you have to do is love yourself, and you attract the right people into your life that do like you. And if someone doesn't like you, they're not. It wasn't meant to be. Like, you guys don't gel, and that's okay. It's not a popularity contest, especially as adults, 'cause we're no longer in school cliques. Victoria, what about you?
I was going to say I'm the opposite to Nikki. I mask all the time, like all the time, because it's kind of like become second nature for me. But as I've grown older, because I'm like 28 now, I've started like stimming in public and like dancing around the supermarket and doing things that I would normally do at home. And that kind of like, it shows a bit more of like my personality and who I am and stuff. But people always like look at me like I'm an alien a lot of the time. So, but I'm at the point now where I'm not really bothered.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if people don't like me, they don't like me. That's fine. I have people that do, and people that are worth my time.
Mm-hmm.
But it's taken me a while to kind of learn that and to not let it bother me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely have been there. Now I always dance, like, because I ride the train to work, a 2 hour commute, and I just stand. That's a long time for anyone, but for me, I stim the whole way. And people are pretty much used to it now. At least they don't give me the look anymore that you're describing. All right. So question 4. Often who we are comes through our special interests like art, YouTubing, music, yoga, cooking. What is your special interest that has helped you relate to others and connect with them?
For me, it's mostly been my artwork. And not only artwork, I mean, my art gets inspired by some of my special interests, and that includes like Tim Burton movies, horror movies. I'm also really into makeup. I'm not wearing any right now, but when I am wearing it, I like to make it look really crazy. And yeah, that's about it. I think it's really great because I met some of my closest friends through my special interests.
Andy.
I guess for me, what I currently do on my YouTube channel's been something which is, I don't know, kind of sparks my creative interest, and that's allowed me to connect with other people who, without the whole YouTube thing, I wouldn't have been able to meet and collaborate with and talk to, I guess. I guess also in a way, if you know invested in your interest, and you can learn, like, not just things about that interest, but just general life experiences from other people. So in a way, it's, I don't know, it's kind of a nice thing, really, I'd say.
Nice. Nikki.
Oh, see, my special interests have always been history and politics. And I've not really found any other people that I can really engage with in regard to history. History is very a niche thing. So it's very difficult to sort of find people who are as enthusiastic in history as you are, you know, because it's very factual. And then politics, I mean, you know, politics can be quite explosive conversation. So sometimes, you know, I mean, for me, I've always been able to have a discussion and have a debate. And, you know, even though I'm passionate about politics, I can take the emotion out of it. And a lot of people can't take the emotion out of politics. So therefore, they don't really listen because they are just reacting from emotion. So it doesn't always bring me a lot of friends, if that makes sense.
It does.
But it's something that I've always just ended up falling into, I think, because I'm a very opinionated person, and politics affects every part of society and everyday life. So it ends up, even though I try sometimes to not get into political conversations. I'm just one of those person who's like, somebody says something, and if I don't necessarily disagree, it's like an impulsion. I've got to I've got to say something, you know. I've got to challenge it. I'm like, but why? Why do you think like that? You know, and it has got me into trouble quite a lot. But I think a lot of special. I suppose I have gaming, which you know, I enjoy console gaming, like mainly on PlayStation. I've always been addicted to gaming. And then especially like historical games like Assassin's Creed. I mean, that is my, you know, it's everything put into one. You know, it's the fantasy. I love the fiction, but then the fact in it, you know, I just absolutely love it. So that's something that I feel like I can sometimes get friends with, but then it's, the thing is with gaming, it's for a female, it's really difficult to be open about, because it's a very male dominated world. I've had men who have literally like excluded me from conversations because I was female. And they expect me to sort of be like, I don't know, sexualized, you know, and that I'm going to be like licking the game controller or something, or not, how food's out, you know. So it's like, it's a very sexualized thing as a woman, when you're just like, yeah, no, like I can sit here and debate about you with like specs and, you know, which game console is better, and, you know, whether I like the film or not, you know, the game, you know, the PS5's recently come out. So there's like conversation about, you know, what that's going to be like, you know. So getting into conversations like that. So I find there's always a difficulty in trying to find friends when you have you know, special interests. And that's why I suppose I have this attitude of like, if you like me, you like me, you don't, because I'm, like I said, I'm an opinionated person, and sort of just open my mouth regardless. I can't help it, it's a compulsion. So yeah, so that's sort of like my sort of special interests are those three main things. But I also enjoy learning about other people's special interests. So other autistics, you know, I've known one person I know who's autistic who are really into trains, and I've sat and listened for like an hour and a half of them talking about trains, and I quite enjoy that conversation. And I'd rather have that conversation than to be talking about like soaps or what's going on TV or something like that, you know. So I think I'm just interested in more having conversations like that than like surface small talk sort of conversation.
All right, awesome. And Victoria.
My interests are quite different, but the one I find that people relate to most is psychology. I studied neuroscience and psychology for 4 years now. So I like looking at the human brain and like people's behavior and stuff like that. And I find that really interesting. And I know a lot of other people who like that as well. So it's really nice to be able to like find people you can talk to. Yeah. And video games. Hashtag gamer girl.
Yeah.
You and Nikki should game sometime. Kick those
Yeah.
dark asses. Yeah, I think that's really the bottom line for anyone who's watching this video now is our special interest is how we often relate to other people because it gives us the cues we need to start a conversation. Like for me, I love music, which is something universally, someone likes some kind of music. Even if I'm not like a fan of Justin Bieber, I can sit there for 10 minutes, listening to someone explain why and get that. And it also attracts you to the people you actually want to talk to by focusing on your special interests. That's like a huge tip, I think, for a lot of autistic people out there that are looking to socialize better. Okay, question number 5. Through our lives, we have been taught how to come into the neurotypical world. But as I've gotten older, I started to realize something. Why don't I ever bring them into my world so they can understand me? Thus, we can communicate better. So one of the things I like to talk about on my show is bringing people into the autistic world and showing them how we think. How do you guys go about showing people how you think and tips that you can give Aspies out there to help explain what it's like to think the way we think?
Showing people how we think. I mostly like to just mostly through social media, I think, because I'm too like shy and timid to tell people in person. I think like I like to share like blog posts about it, and I also think that like social media is a good way to kind of get myself to socialize better. I can express my feelings and educate people better through social media because I get kind of nervous talking in person. But I feel like when I'm on social media, I can kind of type out what I'm feeling.
Yeah, social medias are really key for people on the spectrum because it gives us that social buffer between us and the other person. We don't have to, so we can concentrate on what we're saying rather than are we making eye contact? Can we read what that person's body language is? Do they actually want to talk to me and not go through all that? So I totally get why you do this through social media, Emily. I guess Victoria.
I was going to say, I agree with Emily completely. I find it really awkward, like talking to people like in person. So I share a lot of my experiences and stories on my social media, which lets people kind of get the insight without me having to actually say it.
Nikki.
Oh, see, I'm not good at either. I'm not good on social media or in person. And I think generally because not necessarily a private person, I'm just not a social person, For me, socializing takes a lot of effort. So I do it in very like small segments. So social media can be the whole idea of like pumping out content and like constantly being on and people wanting to see you on social media. That kind of pressure can be difficult for me. Also, social media, a lot of people have a lot of opinions all at one time, so that can be very, very overwhelming for me because you've got everybody's opinion, whereas like if somebody is face to face, you've just got that opinion and it's like just a one-way conversation. so it's easier to concentrate than if you've got somebody who's like jumping in from everywhere, you know. So I do find it easier to have that sort of face to face rather than a sort of group conversation. And in regards to bringing somebody into my world, I don't know, I'm still learning that. I'm still learning how to get neurotypicals to understand how I think, because I fundamentally am confused about how they think. So a lot of the time with neurotypicals, I will ask questions because I'm generally confused, and somehow they think I'm rude or whatever. There's something that's misconstrued in my tone or something like that. So I have a difficulty in getting them to understand how I'm thinking and understand how they're thinking. So I generally struggle with that neurotypical interaction. So if anyone's got any tips, I would like them too.
I guess for me, I haven't figured it out either, to be perfectly honest, because people are just generally confused in any way to begin with. And in terms of me, when I talk about my experiences online and stuff, I guess it's kind of easier doing it through social media, through video, because it's just myself and I'm just talking into a camera, so it's not, so I don't have the preconceived judgment or, you know, people, you know, having to see people be like, oh, why is he talking about that for, sort of thing. But I guess the kind of negative with social media is that it's very black and white, and, you know, people can misconstrue things. But I don't know, I guess in terms of trying to bring people into my world, I find it quite difficult personally, I guess, because I'm kind of a private person and I do like to keep things to myself. I don't know, I find it difficult to share sometimes, but when I do, just I'm just me, basically. That's all I can really say on the matter. I don't really have anything. I don't really have a complicated answer to give, to be honest.
Yeah, it is a very complicated answer because, we're not really asked this question very often because we're always, being pulled by our therapists, our teachers, our parents that, into their world. So it's something I'm trying to figure out myself too. Guys, like, it definitely is a complicated issue because I think the place to start definitely though is like showing your work. Like Annie, all these videos, like you're showing people who you really are, and you're showing what autism is, for you. And Emily's showing that through her artwork. Nikki is showing it through her social media, and Victoria's doing it through her blog. Like, just putting ourselves out there. That's how we normalize autistic behavior and autistic people, and saying that's not gonna be like day or night, really. I think we're doing it just by being here today. All right. So the next question is, once someone's really getting to know you, how do you show your strengths? I.e., like who you really are to a person. Like you're trying to get to know somebody, and you're like, all right, this is Andy, this is Emily, this is Nikki, this is Victoria.
So, getting to know someone like through your strengths.
Yeah, like the thing I always teach my clients is like playing with your strengths. So if you're like you communicate better through drawing, like inviting a friend over to like draw pictures with you, and that's how you connect, and you talking through art. Like that.
I think, yeah. I sell my art at like Comic Cons, and I mean, obviously when the coronavirus isn't happening, I do, but a lot of times I'll draw like caricatures of people and I'll talk to them while I'm drawing, and it kind of helps them get to know me, I think, and helps them connect with me. And I think it helps them want to come back and buy more work, but I just like to connect with people while I'm doing what I love, I guess.
Yeah, I think. Sorry, I was just
Go
going to say. I think it is. Just showing. I think the whole thing with showing your strength is just by simply doing it. To be perfectly honest, in the way that you want to. I guess.
Mm,
I think for me, it depends who I'm talking to, because neurotypicals, I think, find it very difficult to accept my strengths.
mm,
And I find that neurodiverse people are more accepting of my strengths and are able to build up more of that rapport on something that we have in common. I think one of my biggest strengths is the way that I can communicate and are able to think in depth about things. And neurotypical people don't tend to want to have a serious discussion or an in-depth discussion about something, or and everything seems to be on the surface, and I struggle with that. Whereas, like, I find that other neurodiverse people necessarily don't have that sort of on surface conversation, and would want to have a more in-depth conversation about something. So in regards to my strength like that, communicating with neurodiverse, communication is a strength, and I'm able to, that is something that's able to help me connect with people and grow friendships and relationships in the neurodiverse world. But with the neurotypical world, that strength is sometimes not not necessarily a strength.
mm. Yeah, it definitely is almost like a culture shock when you like from talking to someone who's neurodiverse to someone who's neurotypical, because uh, like you said, like they accept our, you guys said, like they accept our differences, neurodiverse people, like without blinking an eye. But there's always that pause with neurotypical people when they see our neurodiverse behavior. Um, and that definitely is the challenge here. And I think just again, the secret is just putting ourselves more out there, and just people get more and more used to it. Like people weren't used to go from horse to cars, but the more they saw cars, the more people were willing to drive them. And also, it's like going into a new country. That's the analogy I like to use for a lot of autistic people that come to me that asking how the social looks like. You're like learning a new culture. Like, what are the facts?
Yeah, I guess it is about just keep talking on about our experiences, and just showing people what we can do. I guess, but it obviously takes time, of course.
Mm. Yeah, like anything with big social change, but like you're doing it we're all doing it through our social media.
Yeah, exactly.
We go on Instagram, we type in autism, any one of our names could pop up, and we could be helping some young individual feel inspired. Okay. Question number 7. When you guys are struggling with a task or a social situation, how do your special interests and personal strengths help you navigate to complete the task at hand?
So I find that because I've studied psychology for so long, I'm able to be really like critical and analyze every little thing I do. So
Mm,
I find that really helps me when I'm like struggling with something, because I can take a step back and I can really like analyze what's going on and think really logically about it, which
mm,
usually is difficult because I have so much emotion. But I've like kind of trained myself. I use mind maps a lot, and I'm able to just kind of just reflect on everything, and I find that really, really helpful.
mm.
See,
Uh,
I'm the same as Victoria. I overanalyze things, but sometimes that's not always been a good thing in my life, because I will overanalyze necessarily on the negative. So in a situation where it's not necessarily that I'm at fault with the communication, or that I've behaved any in a bad way or anything like that, I would see it as oh, well, it must be that I missed the cue and I missed the situation and I missed this red flag and I've done this, you know, and I do tend to turn that analyst inwards. Now I'm really trying to change that and trying to look at more things on a positive note and going, you know, this is how I communicate. So just as like I necessarily need to learn how neurotypicals communicate, they need to learn how I communicate. And it needs to be a two-way street rather than me constantly trying to change myself and trying to analyze how I could have behaved differently. Somehow, you know, it would help if that other person is always thinking on the lines of like, will I communicate in this way? They don't necessarily communicate in that way. Is there a miscommunication here? So I'm trying to definitely look at things more in a positive light and try not to over analyze and be okay with me being me and the way that I communicate and the way that I behave and the way that I tone and stuff. The thing is I have alexithymia, so I struggle to understand people's emotions and understand my own emotions. So for me, I'm always puzzled when somebody has an emotional reaction to something maybe that I've said or done, and I'm genuinely confused why that emotion is there, why that, you know. So for me, it's, yeah, overanalyzing can be good, but it's sometimes that I miss the fact that someone might be manipulating me or that I might not necessarily be the problem in the situation. So overanalyzing can be good and can be bad and at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just there's a time and place for overanalyzing, and then there's a place where you just got to pull back and just be in the moment. And that's how people really learn how to communicate with us, like bringing them into the moment and just focusing on showing them how we communicate.
Completing a task. I usually just like, I like to look for ways, as boring as something might be, or as much as I don't want to do something, I might just look for ways to kind of incorporate my special interests into it. Like, for example, when I was in high school, I would, I was never really good in school, but I would figure out ways to kind of, if I didn't want to do an assignment or something, I would kind of figure out ways to like make it fun. Like, I would illustrate pictures. Like, I've always been a very visual learner, so I would always, like, if we were doing like a vocabulary test, I would always like draw like pictures of the definition, and sometimes I'd make them silly just to make it more fun and kind of help myself understand it better. And same with like other things, you know, I'm always a very like, if I have to get things done, I've just like a lot of autistic people, I have a routine. I like to write things down and then check them off when I finish them. I think that's what helps me get through the day and help me get things done.
Victoria.
Yes. Oh, yeah, I answered the first part, but I'm trying to think.
So the second part of the question is, how do your special interests help you complete a task? Like, is video games like a motivator for you to finish? Like, oh, if I complete this blog, I'll give myself 2 hours of Xbox or whatever you have.
Video games don't help with that, because most times I will play the video games and not do the work. So it doesn't really help. I like writing lists and using lots of different colors. I'm very visual, and yeah, I just have lots of lists and things, and I just like, they help me to keep on track. And yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say colors are my friend, pretty much. I guess I guess for me, when it comes to like completing tasks, I guess if it's a task that I just don't want to do, I just try to turn it in such a way that it just becomes fun, I guess.
I think for me, the problem with me is I have to be dragged to do a task kicking and screaming. I really do. Like, I'm a procrastinator. I will avoid it like as much as I possibly can. I like, I almost have to be my own mum, like, and sort of tell myself off, like, to actually do something, because I I will sit there and go, I can't fill out this form today, and then waste 6 hours building a castle on Minecraft. I just like, so for me, I have to literally constantly keep myself in check, and that's always a hard thing to do. Especially I have 3 kids. Two are on the spectrum as well. So to kind of organize like everybody's life, keep go to meetings, make these phone calls, a lot of the time it's yeah, dragging myself kicking and screaming, because I would rather avoid any of that stuff completely. So yeah, it's almost like you do have to have self-motivation, and like everybody said, like doing lists and sort of making those things, and kicking yourself up the butt is something that you definitely have to develop.
Yeah, there's always something else that you could do instead, I find.
Yeah.
And then it's the night before, and it's 2 a.m. and you're like, oh crap, no, I have to do it. So it's gone for me in the past when I have that attitude. And I think, like the key when it comes to task completion, you have to find what motivates you, what reminds you. Like for me, it's my phone. I have like so many apps that for just like there are bells and whistles, like do this, do that. Like I'll forget.
Yeah, like people laugh because like we literally have an alarm on our phone for dinner time, so it's like people are laughing, they're like, you got alarm for dinner time, and I'm like, yeah, we have to remind ourselves to eat. So we have like alarms going off, and I literally have to get off the phone with somebody or having a conversation with someone, put it straight into my phone calendar, like right at that moment. Otherwise I'm not gonna know it happened. So like you, yeah, I think definitely technology is something that is very beneficial in having alarms and being able to keep you on track, because for me, if I write down lists, and I'll even put that up in somewhere that I actively go past all the time in the house, I will still forget things on that list. I won't be able to do it. I've never been able to take a shopping list or anything like that. So my phone is something that you always have with you, and something that you're always able to refer to. So definitely, yeah, utilize technology. That helps a lot.
I find as well that I use my phone for a lot of stuff like that, and having my phone helps me focus. But I get people all the time like, why are you on your phone again? Why are you on your phone again? And they don't kind of like understand how much it helps, and that can be really frustrating.
Yes, especially in like a social situation, if you're not feeling, I don't know, you're not, I don't know. I don't know what the word is. Not feeling it. There we go. That's the word. And I don't know. It kind of creates. I don't know. I don't know. It just helps, I guess, in some situations where you're not feeling it. And like Nikki's already said, it can be really beneficial when it comes to like planning and organizing and just general things.
Oh yeah, especially for me, like I can get sidetracked. I mean, you probably have all guessed already, I can talk a hell of a lot. So it's like for me, I need someone to, like my husband, he is like, yeah, like Nikki, shut up now, like we need to go. I need these alarms to keep me on track, and keep me on a routine and going, like this needs to be an end of the conversation. This is 10 minutes, it has to be 10 minutes, because yeah, I will talk a hell of a lot, and I don't get when somebody is bored or someone wants to leave the conversation. And then the social rules are very much of like, well, you have to entertain. So I'm like, if someone's there, then they want to carry on the conversation. So I'm sitting there trying to make up conversation, even though I'm exhausted. I want the conversation to end, but then I don't get the social cues that actually that person wants the conversation to end. And neurotypical did this weird kind of ending of conversation, and I'm like, I always sort of miss those cues. So yeah, a lot of the time, sometimes with people with phones, they think that it's rude to constantly be on your phone. It's this added thing of eye contact, like with eye contact, and if you don't do eye contact, you're rude or you're shifty or you're not paying attention and things like that. So being on your phone, people see that as a similar thing. You're not paying attention to me, you're not listening to me. So yeah, some people can have an issue with the phone, but I think that's their problem, and that's something that they have to get over. And if the phone is something that is able to help you and keep you on track and keep you on a routine, like, don't worry what other people think, really.
Yeah, and if people really look at themselves, they're on their phones a lot too. Like, I can't tell you how many neurotypicals mid-conversation will whip out their phone and just start, texting away because they got a text without, saying anything. And then when we do it, it's you're being rude. And next, coming up in this panel discussion is the part I've been looking forward to, talking about empathy. There's a lot of misconceptions out there that autistic people don't feel empathy or don't know how to show it, or again, that we're like sociopathic, that we just don't feel it, which is not true. We just, I think, express it in different ways. So my question to you guys is, how through your personal skills and strengths do you display empathy towards, say, a family member, your partner, a coworker, or a friend?
I definitely think the idea that autistic people don't feel empathy is a myth. I mean, maybe in some cases for some people it isn't, but for me, I know I definitely do. I think for me, there's a lot of things that like bother me, such as like certain noises, but they can really like trigger my senses. Although usually when I hear someone like making those noises, I try to stay quiet about it because I don't want to make them uncomfortable or upset them. So it's kind of a weird thing I do. Like, I don't really think about myself. Even though it's more important that I be comfortable and not anxious, I do think, I try to think of the other person, like, oh, what if they can't help it? What if they can't? Even though I got to think of myself too, like I got to think about keeping myself comfortable, but I sometimes forget to.
I think for me, controversially, my opinion is I think lack of empathy is a human condition. I don't think it's a neurotypical or a neurodiverse thing. I think it's a human condition. I think some people have a lack of empathy and some people have empathy. And I don't think like how your neurodevelopment is indication of whether you're going to be empathetic or not. I know some neurotypicals who are not empathetic at all. I mean, my son is neurotypical, and his therapist said to me that he has autistic traits with empathy. So he's not autistic and didn't have any other autistic traits. But she said, in regards to empathy, he has lack of empathy like an autistic trait. And this really confused me, as actually in my household, the 3 autistic people in my household are actually the most empathetic. So this was something that confused me, and I do think it's generally that I know neurotypicals who lack empathy, and actually could do with help understanding empathy. And then there are autistic people who struggle with that too. So I definitely think it's a human condition rather than what your neurodevelopment is.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's not exclusive to neurodiverse people.
Yeah, I think that's very well put, Nikki. That yeah, I've seen it in neurotypical people, and often what happens is like they get distracted in their lives and they forget to be empathetic. And that's kind of the same thing with us. Like we don't like use our words, but then once we realize that you're hurt, we're just as capable as anyone to snap into action and try to make you feel better.
Yeah, I think also as well, if you haven't experienced what they're experiencing, it's kind of hard also to feel empathetic about their situation or what they're going through, which again, I also agree, it's not an exclusive autism thing, it is just people being people. But I guess kind of the reason why autism and empathy comes up quite a lot is just that is that thing of we don't sometimes react in an empathetic way, but so do neurotypical people as well. So yeah, it's just a human thing, people being people, as it were.
I mean, it's like for me as an autistic, I think autistic people, we display empathy in a different way to neurotypical people, and I think that's where the confusion a lot of the time comes from. Like, because I know for you, Sam, as well, you're a very practical person. So like you feel like if someone is upset or mourning or grieving, it's like, let me take the stress off of you. And that's how I show empathy with how you're feeling, is by cooking dinner and tidying up and doing paperwork and things like that, so you have space to grieve and don't have to worry about these things. Whereas like some neurotypicals have an issue with that, and don't really see that as empathetic and go in, but this person is crying, you haven't even given them a hug. And I'm like, or and I hate to, I think for me, empathy is something that really overwhelms me. So I think for me, I don't know necessarily how to express myself and become overwhelmed with empathy. And for me, it's like a sensory issue. I don't like being touched and hugged. So it's like I'm not necessarily going to want to hug somebody, but that doesn't mean that I don't have empathy and I'm not understanding and sympathetic of the situation they're going through, because I'm not showing empathy in a neurotypical acceptable way.
I find it overwhelming as well. Like, I can't put myself in someone else's shoes because I may not have experienced what they are experiencing, but I can feel their emotion, and that can be really overwhelming at times.
Yeah, I definitely know what you all mean. Like, just we pick up on it. Definitely, it's like a good vibe, a bad vibe, and we're very empathic. I find a lot of autistic people are like just able to pick up on someone's vibe, and it creates a lot of empathy, which I think is why we get so overwhelmed with that emotion. It's like we feel that so much.
Yeah. I'm kind of like, I think I have, like, I can understand how certain people might feel in like situations, but I think my problem is like I have trouble expressing it. Like I have trouble kind of bringing it out. That's like my problem, I think. Like if someone were to like lose someone close to them, of course, I feel terrible, but I don't really know how to like express that sometimes. I don't know if like that's just the me thing or like how to bring it out. Like I just feel awkward. Like again, like a lot of you said, I can't really give hugs or anything. I'm not really comfortable with physical affection, and I'm not good at like socializing either. Like like I can tell people like, oh, I'm here for you, but I don't know, it's just like a weird thing about me. It's like I can't like really express like how I'm feeling. Like I can feel certain things, but I can't really bring it out into the world.
Yeah, I guess for me as well, if I'm feeling a certain way, I'd rather do something practical rather than just be like, oh, I'm there for you. I'd rather, actually do things for the person, which, as we've obviously discussed, that is a form of empathy, actually doing things for people. And yeah, I don't know. Empathy's weird. Can we all just agree? Empathy's weird.
Especially around grief. Like, I find grief a social minefield because it is literally personal to somebody. So what somebody might not seem offensive, somebody else might feel is offensive in that moment of grief, because it's a high level of emotion. So it's almost like people don't react normally around grief because the emotion is so high. So I find that less people are sympathetic to me and my struggles with social element. So it's something that I try and actively avoid. So I will avoid going to funerals and things like that, and actively try and avoid the situation around grief, just because I don't know how to act and I don't want to upset somebody at a time when they're at their most emotional.
Yeah, that's I think one of the most trickier emotions, grief. I myself, when I've gone through those periods, like I get very stoic, and people want to know you feel something, and it like comes out in a big way. But now let's flip the coin. Like, this is the question that I've been asked a lot of. That's why I love the topic of empathy. How do autistic people want to receive empathy themselves? Because when people try to be empathetic towards me, they know I'm on the spectrum, I get treated like childlike, like how you treat a child with empathy rather than an adult. Nikki, in our last video, you talked a bit about this when you were giving birth to your 3 children, like that were just like these fragile little children, rather than adult empathy.
For me, the way that I want to feel empathy is that I want you to sit and listen. Like, don't try and hug me, don't try and shut me down, don't try and go, oh, don't get involved. Like, just sit and listen to me. If I'm crying, let me express that. Like, it's okay to cry. And then I find with neurotypicals, they hate when people cry and they want to shut that emotion down. They can't handle that emotion. So for me, I want to be free to express my emotions, to cry, to be angry, to scream and shout if I want to. I want to be free to feel the emotions that I'm feeling right now, and listen to what I'm saying rather than trying to hug me and shut me down, because all that shows is that you're uncomfortable. That's what shows that. Yeah, it shows to me that you're uncomfortable and your feelings mean more to you than my feelings right in this moment. So yeah, I would like people to just shut up. Yeah. Shut up and just listen.
I'm the same way. Like, I think most of the time I don't even like want people to talk to me. I just really, as long as you're listening and you're letting me let my emotions out, I think usually I'll be okay. I mean, a little advice definitely helps too. Like, I definitely like people to tell me that they're here for me, or that if there's anything they can do for me. But most of the time I just need to let my feelings out and I need to express that. And it is okay to cry, and it is okay to, let your anger out if you need to. Sometimes we do need to do that every now and then, but I mean, I'm a very like quiet person. I don't usually if I need to talk or something, I'll talk a lot if I have a lot to let out. So it can be kind of rough when I do need to kind of let those emotions out. It can be rough on me.
I agree completely, but I think for me it depends on the situation, because I want people to be like empathetic and stuff, but I don't want pity and I don't want their sympathy. I just, like you say, you want someone to sit and just listen so you can just like express how you feel without them judging you.
I mean, I say, for example, for me, like last night, I think it was probably 4 hours. I've just been, I've been going through a lot, like mentally, and I had therapy and stuff. So I've been going through a lot with my mental health, which has affected me in the way that now I've stopped self-deprecating, and like now realizing that a lot of situations, wasn't my fault, and that has come along with a lot of anger. So last night for 4 hours, my husband just sat on the sofa and listened to me rant for 4 hours. I was pacing up and down in my front room and just ranted, and I had the best night's sleep I've had in weeks because he just sat there and was like, yeah, his only involvement was like, yeah, you're right, yeah, that's true, that was his only involvement. He didn't try to shut me down, didn't try to restrict me into sitting down and why are you so angry, like calm down, or anything like that. He just let me just release that steam, release that emotion, and put it out into the earth, because for autistics we feel everything sensory, like more sensitively, do you know what I mean? So we feel everything is so much bigger to us, so holding it all in is actually more detrimental than just letting us release it, just let it go into the atmosphere.
Yeah.
Yeah, empathy is like definitely a tricky one. I think you guys hit the nail on the head with, the important thing is to listen and use short and blunt statements like "I am here for you." Like don't use idioms. Some people use. I can't think of one right now that pertains to this, but you all know those sayings in British culture and American culture that just like you're like, why does the cat have your tongue? And I've spent more time worrying about that cat than getting what the person's actually trying to mean. What I do is I often, when I'm upset, I shut down and get very quiet, so I would get those idioms. All right, that was an excellent talk of empathy, guys, and now we're gonna move on to. I think we're at the point where we're talking about how autistic people have a unique way to express themselves and experience our emotions. If you had to describe to a neurotypical person how your brain processes emotions, how would you do that?
Oh, it's a very interesting one. I guess for me, how I would describe it is it's kind of like, I don't know, just kind of like a physical feeling sometimes, and it's just very much like it's kind of like someone picking up paint and throwing the paint on you, and it's like, oh my god, what is this? And it's just kind of like, it's just, again, like the empathy segment, it's just a bit weird. Like I don't know how to process it sometimes, or how to actually handle the thing, how to handle the thing in the first place. So yeah, it's kind of like being it's kind of like someone chucking paint.
I'm kind of the same. Like, I'm not a super emotional person. Like, usually I'm pretty relaxed most of the time. so that when the emotions do hit me, it can be kind of rough, and I don't really know how to handle it sometimes, other than, I guess, talking to somebody.
For me, I find it like that it's definitely a physical thing. I think the best way that I've been able to describe it is like this energy that starts in my stomach and sort of swirls and swirls to every part of my body, that it's almost like I'm going to explode if I don't do something about it. And or like sitting on Pandora's box, like once the lid is open, it's all gone. You can't get the lid back on. It's for me, it's very this feeling of like growing up and it building, and the more I try to suppress it, the more that there's gonna be this like big at the end.
Yeah, for me, it's like my brain is all fuzzy and like it's bursting at the seams, and it's just gonna like explode and just come out. And a lot of the time, I can't articulate like how I'm feeling. I just feel it.
I mean, yeah, definitely. I find like with neurotypicals, they'll be like, well, tell us when you're becoming overwhelmed. And it's like, you have no idea like how much this feeling overwhelmed so much that like we can't even process the thought for it to come out of our mouth to tell you I'm overwhelmed. It's hard to communicate in that moment where you're just like, just, yeah.
And it's like they say, tell me when you're overwhelmed, but then when you tell them, it's like they don't want to know.
Oh God, yeah, I know that. It's also as well when like I guess you kind of realize you're overwhelmed after events happened as well. That's what I've tended to notice as well. So when it comes to approaching that person saying, "Oh, I feel overwhelmed," then it's just like, okay. Right.
Yeah, I don't think they understand the importance of what we're saying, because like I think for me it's because I will be like this and say I'm overwhelmed. Like the internal feelings are so extreme, but like my outward appearance and my outward communication is like right now. So they don't really see it as the big emergency that it feels like it is inside. So they're kind of like, okay, well, you can wait a minute, whatever. And you're like, no, you don't realize I need now. Now it's the emergency now.
Yeah. One of the common ways I explain it to people is, if you guys have seen the movie Inside Out.
Yeah.
Have you guys seen it?
Yeah.
I know of it, but I've not actually seen it all the way through.
All right. For those of you who don't know, it's a movie about basically it's a Disney movie, Pixar, and it's about the emotions of this little girl's in her head, and like there's anger, jealousy, fear, joy, sadness, all like the big basic emotions in it, and it's how they operate inside her. This whole kid's way of explaining how kids feel emotions. So imagine that each one of your feelings is a little being, and so for people that have seen the movie or should go see it, it's like someone they're all at the control all at once. When we feel especially big emotions, and it's like, who's working to control? Is it anger? Is it fear? Is it happiness? Is it like we're so all over the place, we don't know how we feel, especially when the initial impact of an major emotion. That makes sense. It's like the hugest point is, and another way to explain it for all people that are into the science and psychology of it, usually people have a social filter, and is able to shift the sensory processing subconsciously, or we're not aware of that our bodies are doing that. But for autistic people, often we're fully aware of our what's coming in sensory wise and emotional. So the biggest thing I can say is, especially to this question, is like, give us like 30 seconds to a minute to find the right emotion, because we're going through all that, and we're pulling up all these images of, okay, what do I feel, and we're kind of like again going back to Inside Out, we're assigning who's actually in control right now. Happiness, we're trying to like figure out who's in charge here. So that leads back to my biggest question, which I've all asked you before, but I'm going to reframe it for this conversation we're having today about autism and communicating with neurotypical people in our given societies. If you could change one way a neurotypical person communicated with you as an autistic person, what would that be and why?
Send text messages instead of doing phone calls.
Yes.
Lots of emojis too that tell us how if you're being sarcastic or you're serious.
Mine
Yeah,
is
definitely.
sorry.
Sorry.
You go ahead.
Definitely, like, let me know when you're being sarcastic, because I have a hard time. Like, there's been times where I legit thought people were mad at me, and they're like, no, I'm just teasing, and I would get like sad, and I thought they were like legit being mean to me, and it can like actually like genuinely confuse me. And yeah, definitely texting over phone calling too, and using emojis, because I think I use emojis a lot because it kind of interprets like how you're feeling in a way, like the little faces.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, it's be straight up with what you're saying, what you're thinking, how you're feeling. Like, you know, don't ask me how are you if you don't want to know how I feel, or you know, like if you're angry with me, say you upset me right now. You know, like don't expect me to be this mind reader, or you know, to do these microaggression expressions, and you know, understand all that sort of stuff. You know, tell me straight up. Like I would like them to be truthful. Don't go, yes, that dress is lovely, when your opinion is it's not, you know. Because you know, for me, I'm very much like, I'd be like, no, that dress isn't lovely. You know, and like somehow I become the bad guy about it, even though like later on everyone's like, yeah, I feel the same way as you, but you know, it's not really polite to say that. And I'm like, why? You know, surely it's more mean to let that person walk out like looking like that than it is to say, actually, that dress is actually terrible. Yeah, so I would like, if somebody actually has the opinion of, no, I disagree with you, or I don't like that dress, or I don't like the food you just cooked for me, I would rather somebody say that to me, because at least then we can have a discussion of like, well, what do you like to eat, and maybe next time I can make you something that you would like. You know, I think being truthful leads to further discussions and actually better communication than leaving it open to interpretation.
I guess the other thing to add really to this is really, if you know someone is autistic, they've said, oh, I'm autistic, blah, 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 I guess just asking them how they prefer to communicate and, you know, try to facilitate that as best you can. I guess that's the only other thing I'd really.
Yeah, that's a great point, Andy. That's really a great point, because autistics communicate in all different ways. And yeah, there is this very much drive from neurotypicals to be verbal. So for some autistics, you know, they are non-verbal, and they find it better to have different ways to communicate. So that's a really good point.
Yeah, I don't know. I think for me, if you're having like a group discussion on something, you know, actually giving everyone the tools to actually be able to communicate their own thoughts is important. And I don't know, like I think like everyone else, texting is my friend. Emojis are cool. They tell the whole story, and yeah, 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 yeah. Just asking how people want to communicate is the best way forward, I guess, instead of assuming.
Yeah, I think those are like just being straightforward. Like it's not that complicated. Like autistic people do not like social games. We don't like phrases like "you should just know." Like, we don't know. Because our brains will pull like a Google image of every possibility of every encounter we've had with you, and think, oh, the time I didn't pay the bill at the bar, or was it the time? You know, be specific with that. With us, we like bluntness with how you're feeling.
I think if we all knew what everyone was thinking, we would have a lot more money in the bank and all that lovely stuff. So, just be honest and be clear.
And say what you actually mean as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think I understand as well, like, we don't always know what you mean when you say phrases like, cat got your tongue, or, phrases like that. That's a bit like confusing for us. So it's like, don't necessarily use language like that, when you're communicating with an autistic. Like, be mindful of the language that you use, because for us, we don't always understand it.
Yeah, and then when we don't understand, we spend the rest of the night like trying to work it out, and like nothing else gets done. I always get stuck when I mess up like that. It's like a bug, and I'm sure that's like one of the reasons why like Nikki, you're so grateful that your husband like listened to you for 4 hours. It's like, what? Yeah, I cannot go to sleep if that bug is still in my brain at 11:30 at night. It's just, the best way to communicate is honesty, and I think like everyone on earth, in any relationship wants honesty from their partner, their friends, and stuff. And like, what I think is beautiful about being autistic, we kind of demand that by default, like that you're honest with us. If you want to get to know us, be our friend, fall in love with us, like you have to be honest, or you're not going to get to the real person. And I think that's so human, right? And that's how we're all the same, like anyone else, that's neurotypical or not. That we just want to be ourselves in front of you, and vice versa. We'll try to, allow you to be yourself. And that's why I created this channel, to show how positive and how empathetic and amazing we all are. And you guys are living examples of that. And thank you for sharing your stories today, and your nuggets of wisdom. I hope to have you guys on again to discuss other big topics concerning autistic myths versus reality, and sharing more tips for other people like us out there, and for people that just want to learn what really is autism. It's a pretty awesome thing. So I hope you guys like this video. Who may be watching, please subscribe below. Guys, before you go, how can my audience find you if they want to learn more about your incredible stories?
All my stuff is at actually Aspling, so that's pretty straightforward.
My
sorry. Go ahead.
I only use 2 social medias. That's Facebook and Instagram. My Facebook page for my artwork is My Asylum, art by Emily Zalkowski. My last name starts with an SZ. And my Instagram page is mzalk. The first half of my first name, the first half of my last name, which is EMSZALK. And that's about it. That's where I post all my artwork.
I'm mainly on Instagram at Autistic Life in Motion. And like I said, I do have a Facebook page, but that's more like where I keep articles and interviews and things like that, sort of like an archive of things that I've done for people to access easily and to share. So it's more that my everyday interaction is more on Instagram as Autistic Life in Motion.
And for me, it's Indie Andy UK, pretty much on everything. That's INDIEANDY UK, Indie Andy on YouTube. Yeah, that's about it.
All right. Thank you guys so much. And I think today was a really fun discussion, and a really honest and vulnerable one. And this is how we end stigma against autism, by having conversations like this. And growing up, a lot of people thought we couldn't have conversations like this, but look at us now. I appreciate each and one of you for coming on the show today, for making time to come on. All right, folks, this has been the first of many panels in the future of Heroes of Autism with these guys and other future guests. All right, folks, thank you so much for watching us. Guys, thank you so much for coming on my show. We'll catch you on the next video.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.